about what their mission is. And being an aviator myself, I thought everybody should know this. And if we could give a warm welcome to Don Morgan, please.
Can everyone in the back hear me?
Yes, thank you.
First off, this is sort of coming home for me. I was the state committeeman here, I think in the year 2000, representing Kootenai County to the Republican Central Committee in Boise. And I know what each of you go through to get to your position and then what you do in your position, because I was in your position. And so let me start out by saying thank you for your sacrifice and your willingness to serve the community in an incredibly important way. You in fact are, in my personal opinion, occupying the most powerful office in the land. Why do I say that? I just watched, was it 3 people get sworn in? When there is a vacancy on the county commission, when one of your legislators leaves office prematurely, and it happens, you folks will meet as a committee and decide for everyone else that lives in your community who's going to replace them. You represent the absolute rubber in the road of American civil government. And when people stop caring enough to do what you do, we don't have a government of the people anymore. So I honestly believe what you do is really the most important job in politics. By the way, I also know how much you get paid.
Worth every penny.
Absolutely. We get paid the same thing in the Civil Air Patrol. Let me start by asking how many people here know anything about the Civil Air Patrol? Awesome. For those of you who don't, December 1st of this year, we will be 80 years old. We were formed December 1st of 1941, 6 days before Pearl Harbor. 3 men gathered in New York City. Piero LaGuardia, maybe you've heard of LaGuardia Airport. Hap Arnold, who was the first Air Force Chief of Staff. A gentleman most people don't know, Bill Rob Wilson, a preacher and a poet of note, gathered together to create America's first airborne militia because they could see war was coming. And they wanted to gather together the people that weren't going to go off to fight the war. Older folks, women, folks who were disabled, but who wanted to fly or work in support of the war effort. In the morning after December 7th, they started flying coastal patrol. They flew target missions where they pulled drones behind them to let the Army Air Corps shoot at them. These were civilians. We all are still civilians, and we still volunteer. After the war, 1947, the Air Force was born. And because Air is our middle name, we went with the Air Force and became the official civilian auxiliary, a status that we hold to this day. Very proudly part of Air Force's total force, together with the National Guard, the Reserve, and the active duty components. We're also probably the most cost-effective part of the Air Force. When we're activated by the Air Force to do aerial search and rescue, the Air Force pays about $160 an hour for our flights. If they bring a C-130 in, it runs about $35,000 an hour. And by the way, the pilots for those C-130s, when they're called into search and rescue missions, usually don't know the terrain. They don't know the territory. Our pilots know every inch of the territory in North Idaho and Central Idaho. So we have 3 missions given to us by Congress. The first one, I've talked about aerial search and rescue. That's been expanded to civil defense and disaster relief and recovery. So when the sheriff of this county called us at the beginning of the COVID crisis and said, we need volunteers who are trained to FEMA standards for our emergency operations center, we said we can have people there, and we did almost every day. We've gotten a commendation from Sheriff Wolfinger on the work we did. For the same pay you guys get, by the way. But we serve the community. The second mission they gave us was aerospace education, because the folks that founded us and every one of our leaders since believe that aerospace is a key to America's retaining its position as the world leader in commerce and industry and defense. And so both internally and externally, we carry the message of aerospace education. So if you know teachers Homeschool teachers, private school teachers, public school teachers, charter school teachers, let them know that we have a resource in our community that brings K through 12 accredited curriculum into the classroom for every teacher who chooses to join our program. One time, $35 membership fee. They get access to K through 12 curriculum, testing materials, classroom manipulatives, and K through 12 appropriate STEM kits, as well as an entire resource library on aerospace that the Air Force pays for. The third mission that Congress gave us that we have proudly executed since December 1st, 1941 is youth leadership. Youth leadership training. Membership number 11 in our organization, issued on December 1st, 1941, belongs to a colonel in our service who will get her 80-year pin in December of this year. She joined at 13 years of age. And we have been teaching America's youth since that day the virtues of leadership the way the military teaches it. And so my ask today is this. How many of you have served or are currently serving in the military or have family members or friends who have? That's darn near everybody. In our organization, we take any American citizen of good character as an adult member or alien resident of good character. We don't discriminate. But in our organization, there is one group of people that is reserved specifically to former or current military NCOs. And that's our NCO program. Our squadron has one NCO. We have about 60 officers. For those of you that were in the military, if you had a choice between having too many NCOs or too many officers, I'm just saying, we know for a fact that people who have been professional military, men and women, have been trained to service, trained as mentors, and we've doubled our cadet population in the last year and a half. We need more adult mentors for these young people, and that's my ask. I've left flyers, I think, for everyone. If you don't have one, raise your hand, I'll get one to you. John, how are you, sir? It's good to see you again.
See you, sir.
It's been a while.
Thank you, sir.
I'll bring one up to you. If you can serve, we'd love to have you. Pay the same thing no matter how many stripes or bars you got on. If you know someone that you think would be great with these young people. By the way, NCOs can do anything in our organization an officer can do except be a unit commander. And there's even a workaround for that if we need to. They can be pilots, they can be chaplains, they can, I take that back. I don't think they can be chaplains. They can be character development officers. And the reason for that, by the way, is our chaplains are trained by the Air Force to be activated by the Air Force at need, and the Air Force does not have enlisted chaplains. So our chaplains are all officers. And we have 2 in our squadron, I think, right now. We'd love to have you. By the way, you guys have all demonstrated a willingness to serve. If you want to serve more, we're here for you. And by the way, if you've been watching the paper, we had 2 of our cadets, both young ladies this year, go off to the service academies. One of them went to the Merchant Marine, one went and is in Jacks Valley right now at the Air Force Academy after her 2-week quarantine. We regularly send kids into the military, into the service academies. We get them coming back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years later, telling us how the program changed their life. Mr. Chairman, I know I've taken a couple seconds longer than you offered me, and I apologize for that. But I thank you for the opportunity, and if I could answer a question or 2, I'd be happy to.
Certainly. Do we have any questions?
Yes,
Carol.
ma'am.
How can I get information about the program you do for the schools?
For the schools, so I will state afterwards, and
Okay.
in fact, if you write my email address down, email me.
Okay.
It's really simple. It's dmorgan@cap.gov. DMORGN, no dots, no dashes, @cap.gov.
Cap in caps or cap?
CAP.
CAP.
I know what it stands for. That's Civil Patrol. Would you repeat it, please?
Sure, dmorgan@cap.gov.
Any other questions?